Hey guys, and welcome to another episode. Today in this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the reverse light switch on a manual transmission car. Now, the Golf that we've got behind me, well actually behind us, doesn't turn on the reverse lights when you put the shifter into reverse. So right now with the car on, when you put the car into reverse, see how the taillights don't do anything? Luca, press the brakes. The brake lights work. Luca, turn the signal on. Signals work, or actually the four-ways work, but the thing is the reverse light function doesn't work. So the light at the bottom in there and in the bottom in there should turn on when you put the car into reverse, but for some reason it's not. So in the transmission there's a little switch like this that is going to need to be getting replaced. So what happens is when you put the shifter into reverse, the arm pushes on this, it completes the circuit, and then it allows current to go to the rear tail lights and turn on the reverse light bulbs. So we're gonna have to get access to the transmission that's underneath the battery in there, and we're gonna have to swap out this sensor that we have down in there. So the transmission sensor is underneath the battery that we have right here and the plate. So we're gonna have to remove the battery and the airbox that we have right here so we can get access to down there. So Luca, get to it.
First you want to take off, I don't know what else.
That's a mass airflow sensor?
Yeah.
You knew that though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then at that point, you're gonna have to remove the little clamp right here that's holding on the intake hose to the airbox. So with that little clamp squeeze, you can push it back, and then the airbox should be able to, just be able to be pushed out of the way. So wiggle it off the end like that, and then you should be able to pull the airbox out of the car. Now every car is gonna be different, so just remove the airbox or anything that's intruding in the way. So in our case, we have the airbox and the battery, so just take it out and set it aside. Now if you guys have a Volkswagen Golf or a Jetta, the previous owner decided that his car was going to be a race car and he couldn't handle the weight of an extra bolt right there. So he just took it out and left it out. But you should have a bolt that's securing the airbox onto the car. Next up is going to be the 10mm nut that's securing the negative post on the battery onto the post. So just remove it, loosen it up, and take it out of the way. And then you should be able to wiggle off the terminal right there and set it aside. And the same thing applies for the positive terminal. So take off the 10mm nut, remove the connector like that, and then you should be able to disconnect the battery after you remove any bracing. So on our car right here, we've got a little nut down there that needs to be removed because, see how it's still secured in? Once you remove that, this thing should come free. All right, so next up we have to remove the battery, and in order to do that, we have to disconnect this little flap on the backside. Okay, go ahead, do it. Take that little piece out, and then we should be able to take the battery out of the car. Now the transmission is actually underneath this battery plate, so we're gonna have to disconnect those 4 little screws that are in there, disconnect them, and then this entire tray is gonna be able to come out. So with that casing removed, we're gonna come down here and we're gonna be able to see the sensor that we're gonna need to replace. So the sensor right there behind those wires is what needs to be taken off and removed and then replaced with the new one. Now to give yourself a little bit more room, if you want, you can move this little golf club shaped lever that way, and that's gonna give you a little bit more room in there to get access to that little sensor. So with the transmission in the initial position that it was in, it's in 4th gear. Now to give ourselves more room, when you move that little club, it's gonna push it from 4th to neutral to 3rd gear. Now it's gonna give you more room to work with, and you're gonna be able to spin your wrench and take the socket out. So if you can, first disconnect the wiring that goes to the sensor so that you can spin the sensor and remove it. Now it might be hard to work with, but I mean, if you take your time and you're persistent, you're gonna be able to remove it completely. So you just take it off and set it aside. Now if you have enough room to turn that socket down there with a 22mm wrench, by all means go for it. But for us, we're gonna have to disconnect the wire right there that goes to the starter, just to give ourselves a little bit more room and move all the wiring up here out of the way. So because this is kind of hard to work with, see how much room we now have? We're gonna be able to put the wrench on there and then disconnect that. So you can use either a wrench or a deep socket to remove the sensor, but just take it out and remove it from the transmission. So inside the sensor, you're gonna have 2 connections. You're gonna have the one right here and the other one right here. So what happens is when this button here is not pressed in, so when it's just let like that, you're gonna have resistance. So it's gonna be basically like this. It's gonna be an open circuit and it's not gonna be able to connect electricity through one end to the other. So what happens is when you press the button, when that gets pushed in, you're going to complete the circuit, and electricity is going to be able to flow through the one end, through the one connector in there, to the other one in there. All right, so I'm going to see if I can record this. So I'm going to connect up the negative terminal right here to the one side on the connector in there, and I'm going to put the red one on the other one. So when we connect it up, and you're connected to both of them, notice, one sec, let's see if I can get it. It's kind of difficult because the connector's kind of small. But notice how see how it says OL? Now when you press the button on the sensor, it should change. Now notice nothing's happening. It still says OL. You can press it or unpress it and nothing will happen. And if you grab the new sensor and you connect the one side to the one terminal and one to the other, when you press the button, see how it should be approaching 0. One sec. You shouldn't get any resistance in here. And that's going to allow you to complete the circuit. See there? So when it's pressed, it's going to be able to complete the circuit. When you let go of it, it goes over limit. So that means that if we replace our faulty sensor right here with our new one, the reverse lights will be able to turn on and function properly. So now it's just a matter of reinstalling everything back together. So with the sensor, re-thread it back into the transmission. Now make sure not to cross-thread it, and make sure that you have another washer on the end of it. So just thread it in, tighten it up to the point that the aluminum washer right there will crush, and then wire everything back together. So with the sensor now mounted in, get the wire for the starter, hook it back up. So insert it at the end of the starter. You can then go ahead and push on the sensor for the reverse light switch and secure it in place. So once it's on there and there's no wiggle play, you can then go ahead and install the bracket down here on for the battery, mount the battery back in, and then reinstall the airbox that hooks up right here. And as you can tell, the reverse lights now work. And that, guys, is how you replace the reverse light switch on your Volkswagen Golf. Now, depending on your car, if the light still doesn't turn on, if your sensor has a spacer, make sure, if it doesn't work, take it off, put it back on, but without the spacer, and then see if that makes a difference. If you guys have any questions regarding the video, throw them down in the comment section below, and I'd be happy to help. Again, guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
You said a spacer instead of a washer, but it was a washer.
It's the same thing. There's no difference. But regardless, lights work. Yay! Woo! Such a beautiful switch. No big deal.
I mean, whatever, I'm basically Jesus. Fixed the lights.
You basically did all the work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. You did nothing.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I just watched.
Yeah, you were just taking selfies all the time.